The reason I got acquired is because I had the systems and processes in place which were absent in the industry at that time at the level that we had done it, and we'd invested heavily in it. So imagine this, they buy the company for $25 million. The existing system with just a few more resources in it, they can take it from $25 million to $250 million company. With a small investment of $1 million additional to that, with them building these systems, they can double that, go to $500,000. And with even more investment, they can cross the $1 billion mark. So it's exponential because the systems enabled the growth in that business to continue to take place regardless of the people. Now, I'm not saying people are not important. People are important. They're actually very, very important part of the process. But
look into his eyes. They're the eyes of a man obsessed by
success.
Eyes that mock our sacred institutions. Bedroom eyes, they call them in a bygone day.
Sex desire is the most powerful of human desires. When driven by this desire, men develop keenness of imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability unknown to them at other times. So strong and impelling is this desire for sexual contact that men freely run the risk of life and reputation to indulge in. When harnessed and redirected along other lines, this motivating force maintains all of its attributes of keenness of imagination, courage, etc., which may be used as powerful creative forces in literature, art, or in any other profession or calling, including, of course, the accumulation of riches. Napoleon Hill.
Hey there, peeps. Welcome to the Little Blue Pill for Business podcast, where it's all about getting it up and keeping it up. And yes, we're talking about revenue and profits, but I understand that it's all about the 6 inches between your ears. So I interview some of the hottest people in the industry that are blowing and going so we can help you get in on some action. So if you like a little tongue in cheek and not just physically, this podcast is for you. Today, we are getting into business bed with none other than Nader. Nader, thank you so much for being here today.
Excited to be here. This has got to be one of the most unique podcasts I've done yet. I can't wait to get started.
Awesome. Well, for a little bit of foreplay, how about you let everybody know a little bit who you are and a highlight of your business?
Absolutely. So I've been building companies and organizations for the last 25 years, and I specialize in something called the science of exponential growth, which I write several books about. I do several keynotes around, and my core business, which is advisory services around that, working with Fortune 1000 companies, governments, unicorns on how to tap into exponential growth. And I have fun doing it. It's a lot of fun. It's been some crazy learning, but it's a lot of fun. So yeah,
I get hot and bothered just listening to you talk about business. So this is going to be a ton of fun. So let's back up the bus. How did you get into exponential business growth as your thing?
It happened like many things in my life, a lot like by accident. So I was at the point I was exiting my last business, which it was 2017, 2018. And I was kind of exiting, and then they gave me 6 months of directive recall as the acquisition happened. And so in that time, things, of course, were very smooth, but I had some time to sit and think about what I was going to be doing next. And as I was talking to several people I work with, they're like, it's interesting how you always are able to, make businesses grow like this. And they'd have like this hockey stick thing. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about hockey sticks, not because I'm Canadian, but I'm going to talk some very specific things about that type of growth. And it's like probably the number one thing, probably the first thing I talk about with clients when we first meet that kind of surprises them. It's one of the popular videos I've done on my YouTube channel as well, which is growth on cocaine. But that being said, I stepped back and started documenting 25 years of startup companies, unicorns, governments, Fortune 500s, working as a consultant, working internally in organizations, building organizations, raising money. And I started fundamentally asking some very basic rudimentary questions that would help me start to measure and understand the science. And that was, why does one company grow and the other doesn't? And it started to get a little bit more complicated than that. It was more like, why do some companies start not growing and then grow later? Why do some start growing and continue to grow? Why do some of them never grow at all? Why is it, the opposite way? They start growing and go the other way. And I had these basic patterns I had developed I started to study, hundreds of companies beyond the ones that I've built to try to understand what is the difference in these patterns. And so I established these patterns and started to understand the difference between kind of what would be incremental growth versus exponential growth. And a lot of the core of it is really mindset. I know that's probably something you hear from a lot of people, but genuinely said, that's the foundation of anything else that you do, because whether you've got like the awesome tools, systems, or whatever resources, even if you don't got the right mindset for it, and it just won't work out the way you want to do it. So yeah.
And it always comes down to that. So let's talk about kind of the erectile dysfunction of business first. Is what do you see is going wrong? Where's the frustration for most business owners that they just can't get the traction that they're looking for?
So it goes back to the hockey stick part. So when I walk in to any business, and I've gone through this as well. So anybody listening to this, you've definitely experienced this. So either working for an organization or building your organization. So growth on cocaine is what I call it. And essentially the brain chemistry is exactly the same. So you have your first experience. It's a most incredible experience. And then you want to repeat that experience, okay? And to repeat that experience, you're going to have to put a lot of effort to just get an incremental upswing on the same experience you had, but you're starting at the top of the last experience you had. And every time you do that, that incremental bit gets smaller with time, but as the experience continues going like this, essentially what that really means is you're going to continuously put way more effort to chasing something that you want like you had the first time, and continuously do that. So it's equivalent when, I got my sales or marketing team, they come in and like, dude, we got our first deal. And you see the spike on the graph, and they kind of look at me and they kind of see like, why is this guy not excited? I say, listen, I'm happy. It's exciting, but this is not how it works, because what's going to happen is we're going to get exhausted. And that's not how companies grow. The solution to it is what I call the rising horizon. So the rising horizon is essentially building the systematic and sustainable consistency in how a business grows. And that effect creates a perpetual effect. The perpetual effect is where the growth hacking comes into play, which is me putting in less effort to get more output. And at the core of what growth hacking is about, or the growth sciences, is exactly that. How do I put in 1 unit of effort and get 10 units of results out on the other side? That's the art, what this is all about.
And to me, it's it's also a fascinating parallel to the psychology of, the players in life and the players in business. And there is this trend right now, particularly, or maybe it's been the last kind of 5 years or so, of the whole, you got to embrace the grind, get in the grind. And it's all a very masculine energy of go, 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 push, 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 make it happen now. Is that just kind of the 30-year-olds getting their voice in marketing right now? Or is there something else to that? Or is it just marketing hype and it's going to end up failing? What's your opinion on all that?
Well, if you take a look what's happened in the last few years, you've seen how many people have burned out, like massive anxiety, especially after the pandemic, right? And so if you've noticed that mental health was taking the back seat for a long time until the pandemic hit. And then it went to the top of the agenda, and it's no longer there again. So if you notice, like after the pandemic goes to the top of the agenda, you've got the great resignation, quiet quitting, and all these things that happen. And then all of a sudden, like mental health kind of muted again. And let's get back to the grind. Really dangerous, because the world has changed. I don't know anybody who, after the pandemic, doesn't have some form of anxiety, even if it's at a minute level. It's unfortunately the world that we live in right now, and becoming more human is really crucial right now. Even if with artificial intelligence, all this incredible technological leaps that we're experiencing right now, at the end of it, it's still human creativity and ingenuity will not go away. That's what's going to drive what's coming next, but you need to be human to be able to do that. So people are being burned out like crazy. So I look at this from a perspective which I call the growth dilemma. And when I was kind of looking at those patterns I talked about, what I realized is like every executive at every level. So you're regular executive all the way up to the CEO of the company. You have at the beginning of the day, the month, the year, the quarter, the year, the exact same problem. You step in, you have a plan, you look at it, and then you've got these massive goals, and then you've got your resources down here. And then the gap between the two is always massive. You always have less resources than the goals you have, okay? So you really have two options, and that's where the dilemma comes in. It's either I wing it, which is the popularity of low performance culture, or the winging it culture, whatever you want to call it. But it's essentially the popularization of poor performance, and you see it all around you. I mean, it's in everything that you see around you. The other side is growth hacking it, right? And so the dilemma here is like, which one do I do? And it usually starts with, what's the easiest way, and what do I know best? And obviously, figuring out the growth hacking part is the more difficult part. So many people opt out for, well, let's just wing it and get by with poor performance. And that can, and believe me, that can last for some time. We've all been there, but it reaches a point where it stops and it doesn't work anymore. And then someone else has got to figure it out. And that's where this dilemma continues to grow, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of them as that there's, so I see two. I see one is the kind of entrepreneurs going, but I want to do everything. I want to be creative. I don't want to stifle myself and go, I'm just going to do this one thing for the rest of my life and do it really well, because I would rather kill myself than do that. So I'll accept mediocre for the creativity side of things. And then I see the next phase of them as they're not incorporating systems into their business. And oftentimes I think it's because of ego, and they want to be the one that runs the business. Recently watching a show on Netflix, and I won't mention too much about it because I don't want to out anybody, but the way they're running their business, the first episode is like, I would never buy from these people. Never. And they've got some pretty big clients. And it was like, the business is so distract and based on ego that it was almost painful for me to watch. Everybody else is watching the drama thinking this is awesome. And I'm like, this is business. You can't run a business with drama.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I've made millions doing exactly what you're talking about, which is, and I'll tell you about my first company that got acquired. The reason I got acquired is because I had the systems and processes in place which were absent in the industry at that time, at the level that we had done it, and we'd invested heavily in it. So imagine this, they buy the company for $25 million. The existing system, with just a few more resources in it, they can take it from $25 million to $250 million company. With a small investment of $1 million additional to that, with them building these systems, they can double that, go to $500,000. And with even more investment, they can cross the $1 billion mark. So it's exponential because the systems enabled the growth in that business to continue to take place regardless of the people. Now, I'm not saying people are not important. People are important. They're actually very, very important part of the process. But we cannot get in the way of our own businesses, and that's the ego that you're talking about. We get in the way because it's about me. It's about me. It's about me. You're there to make your system systemized and grow sustainably, so it can do its job to serve you, not the other way around. I know that's much easier said than done. There's a lot of work that goes into that, but I agree with you. I've numerous times I've seen ego get in the way, and that's why I always supersede by putting the right systems and processes in place that make sense.
Nice. Is there a point where somebody should be looking at, hey, Nader, I think it's time for you to come into my business? Is that now? Is it always? Or is there a precipice where it's like, okay, now you really need to call me?
It depends. Like, one of the biggest mistakes I see when someone contacts me, they say, hey, we're going to go to like a certain level, and then we're going to look at growth, right? So they always have something pre-growth that they think about. And that's like the worst mistake you can make, because there's no better time to grow than now. If you wait, then things are going to get out of control. And the best time, actually, there's another mistake. So the best time for you to actually do growth hacking is when you're in a situation of chaos, when things are actually pretty crazy, because you're more potent to change and taking more radical leaps than you would if everything was smooth like the way you wanted it. You'd be less likely to make the decisions you need that would leap you forward. So when someone comes and say, hey, we're building this product, we need to, we're just going to finish this up, although we got the first version, and we're going to bring in growth. And I said, well, if you don't design the product to grow from now with a chaotic situation you have, you're going to have a problem later. You're going to run out of money by the time you get to that point, and then you're in a lot of trouble. So yeah, I mean, chaos is the best time to make change, when things are messy. And you got to remember, most startup companies, unicorns, are messy, right? So I had an incident once. I had a client. They're how do I word it? So they're a membership where the top funds in the world belong to for research and development around the next things that are happening when it comes to the kind of the larger investment environment. And so I was brought in to help funds understand how to tap into unicorns and startups. And the biggest challenge bridging this gap is that these guys think in very structured environments, whereas startups and unicorns don't. And so fundamentally, they'd have this mess on their hands and they would just stay away from it because they would consider it very risky. But that's where the return is, right? The return is in the messy stuff. You need to fix it and structure it. So they would just stay away from it. They wouldn't know what to do with it, actually. two different mindsets. Yeah.
Fair enough. And I've been on this kick lately of explaining to people that you can't go from one stage of startup to growth, or from growth to scaling, or scaling to exit, without going into that state of chaos. And that it's a very natural process, and you have to overbuild in order to figure out how to manage the next stage. Because if you're not overbuilding, you're not at the point of chaos yet, and you don't know what that next thing is yet. It might be the thing you're working on, but it might not be. And there's almost always an element of that chaos that comes into being able to move forward.
The unknown, like the part that you're talking about there, the unknown, that's actually where the magic of growth actually sits, right? It's in the unknown area. So I can tell you that the best growth hacks that I've ever done for myself or clients have always been things that are just in a really deep, tiny pinhole level opportunity where no one can see it except one person. And most people will shy away from it because I'll give you an example. So when a client comes to me and say, hey, okay, we're benchmarking against our competitor, and on these metrics, we're not doing very well, and we need to growth hack that matrix, that metric, sorry. And I tell them, what if you were to measure something completely different? What would happen to your business? What if we were to change the way measures were happening within the industry itself? And so most people would be like, no, we don't. That's just not how things are done. And I say, well, that's exactly the point. Who said it has to be done in a certain way? Just because your competitor or your industry is doing it in a certain way, you shouldn't necessarily be following the same path of it. If you know, in general, find another way to do it. And it's pretty crazy. I'll give you one example. So we have this comes from a client of mine, and we implemented it in the 10-day growth hacking challenge. So the 10-day growth hacking challenge is something anyone watching now can go watch for free. It's on my YouTube channel. Just put in my name, put in the 10-day growth hacking challenge, and you'll see how we implement it's $1 million challenge broken down to $10,000 challenges. And you'll see how we kind of take that and help people doing all kinds of different things grow exponentially. So one of the guys, his name is Mr. Ice, and he has an ice business, right? So we're talking like super, super simple traditional business. He gets an ice bucket, he puts some ice, and then he trains you about the mindset, just like what's his name, Wim Hof, right? So he's like, another Wim Hof, and then he teaches you how this improves your your mind, your immune, and so forth. So he does the mind stuff, and then you jump in. And then he charges obviously a service for that. And so I told him, well, let's start experimenting with the color of the water. And it's called a color hack. We did this with another client. So we pull it out of the playbook. And he's like, what do you mean change the color of the water? And I was like, well, people will respond to different colors of the water. Let's try a few colors except red for obvious reasons. And so we did. We started to see how people respond. Okay. And then we found a certain color that people were more had better performance. So he kind of tests you out and you get your record with him. He taps into your record. That's another growth hack. And people would compete on categories. And if you beat 3 times in a certain category, hitting number 1, you get a refund on all the times you've actually done it. So there's like a financial incentive to it too. So we found that there was this deep blue color that people would just do a lot better in. And then after that, I said, okay, now let's find what would be an essential smell that would work with it. So we found that as well, and people's performance would go up. And as they did that, okay, obviously revenue would go up with that. And he was able to, so he started at like 250 local currency. I don't know what that would be in dollars. And he took it all the way up to about 500-600. So it's about almost double. And the reason being was that people were lasting longer, they were getting more benefits out of it, and they were able to continue using. And all we did was just change a color and a smell, and none of his competitors till today were able to figure it out. They just could not get it. There was nobody doing it. After he's done it for 2 years now, I guess, still nobody's figured it out, and that's what usually happens. It takes a long time for them to figure out. And he's got much better margins than anyone else who's doing it.
Nice.
That's it. It's just that simple. Just that simple.
Love that. Well, and it warms the cockles of my heart, because I used to tell people, whatever you're marketing right now. So if you're marketing houses, look at the shoe industry. What does the shoe industry do to exponentially grow their business. There's probably only 3 or 4 of them, so it should be easy to figure out what can you do to take that element and bring it into housing. And people thought I was on crack. Like, yeah, but it works. It works really well. Louis Vuitton made a fortune by bringing in a red sole. It's it wasn't Louis Vuitton, sorry. I just got shot by every fashionista out there, but y'all know who I'm talking about. So we'll leave the name anonymous. So to me, this is the brilliance of that creative spark. And this is why I keep telling everybody AI is not going to take over the world, because that creative spark only happens from humanity. And you want to be able to, like, it can give you ideas. Yeah. But to be able to look at these things and look at their businesses and be able to finesse those points is fantastic. So let's talk about the benefits of bringing somebody in like you, because a lot of people are going, yeah, but it's going to cost me a lot of money. Yeah, but then I'm just going to have to work twice as hard. Yeah, but so get rid of the yeah buts for me. And what are some of the obvious benefits?
See, you're going to have to grow regardless. The brilliant thing in my business is that everybody has a growth problem. Whether you're growing or not growing, and you're trying to figure that out. So that's a pretty awesome thing for me. For me, it's more like, who should I work with? Because if they don't have the mindset to be able to absorb what I'm about to bring to the table, usually the success rate goes very low. And I've had to learn to get a lot better at that. And it has a lot to do with starting with the mindset. And when I walk in and like I was kind of mentioning earlier with the benchmarks, right? And if somebody was, not ready and willing to kind of change the measures, and here's the thing, I don't blame them for being afraid not to change. It's a question of, do you have the will to experiment? So it's just small, simple. We keep it low cost. We start from there because we need to do a lot of it. And if they're ready and willing to do that, that's usually the starting point. So this example I gave you, Mr. Ice, he moved on, and he not also did he build this into his little empire. He calls me up, I think 6-8 months after we did the challenge. He's like, I'm starting a chocolate business. And I was like, how do you go from ice to chocolate? Like, and so he's like, it's like when I took that challenge, my mind flipped. Like, he's like, my thinking completely changed. I started to see opportunities in traditional businesses that nobody can compete with. And I'm going to start applying it in other places. And so there you go. Bam. It started working for him. So he's a serial entrepreneur. He was a serial entrepreneur before he started. By the way, serial entrepreneurs are always ready and willing to take more risk than newbie entrepreneurs, purely because they've had their hands burned and they're highly resilient. So he's had his fingers burned so many times. It's like, it doesn't make a difference. He's like, let's just do it. Let's get the result and see what comes out of this. And we move forward. The other thing, which is interesting, is we're not pursuing a result. So I always tell people, so we've been conditioned like this, right? Like the result. Okay. What we're after is everything that happens before that. And the result is just a byproduct. Okay. So sometimes we can get blind spotted, like say, okay, I want to make $10 million and that's it. That's my goal. That's the result, $10 million. Okay. The $10 million is actually irrelevant. I'm glad you have the goal. It's everything that happens before that, which is what we need to focus on. It's almost kind of like leading and lagging indicators. I was just doing this with a client recently, so it's just fresh on my mind. So it's the same kind of idea. And so when we stop thinking about the results and start thinking about the process, the results naturally come in, and it's actually psychologically a lot easier to deal with. It lowers the pressure psychologically, and it allows you to start really, really focusing on things that like would take you into other places you normally wouldn't have done it other than just having that consistent pressure of that goal sitting in front of you all the time.
So peeps, from a sexual point of view, the same exact thing happens. If you're focused on the orgasm, you're going to put yourself under undue stress and it's not going to happen. Whereas if you focus on having fun and exploratory and what you're going to do to get there, it makes it a lot more entertaining, and the result becomes inevitable anyway. Sorry, I just could not help notice that parallel in there going, hey, this is awesome. Let's explore this one. Because it is. There's so many people that go, I have the goal, which is great. And then it's the reverse engineering of, okay, but what do you got to do to get there? And that process. But sounds very transactional to a lot of people. So how do you take that kind of the reverse engineering of the plan and kind of how many people do I have to call and how many, like that sort of thing, which drives entrepreneurs crazy? How do you bring that creativity back into it, that it is more of a sexual exploration than a reverse engineering how to have an orgasm, because that sounds boring as shit.
Yeah, so it's like, so here's like an analogy. I'm going to run off the cuff of this, but you can consider my services like the lubricant. that
Roadmap.
Regardless of what the friction is happening, right? The lubricant is what makes everything move, right? And that is, in a very simple way, that's exactly what it's all about. That's what makes it creative. It's the lubricant that makes everything move all around. So I don't know. I hope that analogy doesn't sit too negatively in any way. I'm taking a risk trying this. Let's see what happens, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, because I think it is true that there is, and of course, then we bring into your other philosophies of bringing in the color and the smell and going, yeah, that totally works. That makes everything a lot easier, because it's now you're focusing your attention is somewhere else. And oftentimes when there's stress, you can't see those open doors elsewhere, right? We're not aware of what's going on to the left and the right. Whereas when we're chilled out, we're relaxed, we're kind of in the moment, then we can notice the things left and right and go, hey, never noticed that before. And what's going on over here. So I am loving all of this. In a minute, I'm going to ask you about a Cinderella story of one of your clients. You've given us some awesome stories, but we're going to pause for one moment.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.
So I am totally stoked. Give us another example of a Cinderella story of one of your clients.
So I'm going to give 2 examples here. One is a friend of mine who just needed some help, something real simple, and then one with an actual client. So a friend of mine, he just set up a food truck, and he had some competition, but they all had kind of different type of food, and they were servicing a downtown area. So it was a lot of competition. So he's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I said, okay, well, let's start with what time did people start thinking about lunch? And he'd figured it was kind of around between kind of 11:15 to 11:35. That's when people would start to think about it, but would make the orders after that. So I said, is there a way that you can get the bag that you deliver your burgers in, but you can make the burger like smell? Because usually when a delivery is meant, they close it up and intentionally to stop the smell from coming out. And so he's like, well, why would I do that? And I said, well, what you want to do is you want to take a walk on a certain floor, make it look like you're making a delivery, but it's open so everyone can smell it to stimulate them to make the order. So you would repeat this daily, but you can't go to the same place every time. So you'd have to systematically change it. And he came up with his own formula. And I don't know the results in the sense of the numbers, but he's like, dude, this worked like magic, right? And he was just getting, and his competition was like, how is this guy getting all these people? And they would see deliveries coming, like, which would be the one time they do it, then it would just trickle in right after. So in the same vein, so we have a client, they're in North America, they're a franchise. They also deal with burgers and things like that, but they're a higher end franchise, not so big though. And when we were going through their data, kind of figure out how we're going to growth hack this, we found that the average basket value was about $85. And so to stimulate certain customers that had some form of frequency, we would gift them a $200 credit. Okay, so they get this $200 credit, and instantly in their mindset would be like, well, I can go twice and a little bit more. But in reality, the condition was that you can only spend $50 of the 200, meaning you can go there 4 times. So they've calculated, it's like, well, if I was to make this spend, it would be $35 per visit. And so we kind of figured out what the cost behind that was and the unit economics behind it would be. And the goal here was to change the behavior. And to change the behavior was to get people in more frequently. And by getting people in more frequently, we'd see the basket value increase over time. And so once they would maximize the 4 visits, we would then have another campaign that would drive another credit. On top of that, we find different ways for segmenting the different customers, and then we would continuously stimulate the frequency. And that worked like magic. We've done this actually in a few other industries as well, where we pay very close attention to those behaviors. By the way, so one of the main things in growth hacking is changing people's behaviors. It's not easy to do, but once we're able to manipulate, and I use that in a very safe, legal way, for sure, because there are a lot of ethical questions that come around this. How we would work with behavioral change, and how we would kind of shift consumer response to that. It's just something that we look at very, very carefully when we do these things.
I love it. And I often refer to manipulating is creating triggers that will change behavior in a positive way. So you're not forcing the behavior, but you're enhancing or enticing things in a certain way, like giving a horse an apple.
Absolutely.
Horse wants it. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome. I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How did they start that journey with you?
So you can go to my YouTube channel. I mean, there's a lot of free education there. One of the comments I get is like, "This is all for free." Is there like a trick behind it? Says there's no trick behind it, because a lot of the content behind the 10-day growth hacking challenge have been sponsored. So, and that's part of the mandate, is to get these things out there. So you can get a lot more on there. Everything from like, what is growth hacking? How does it work? What are the top tools to use? That's a common question. You get all those tutorials. You can go in there and watch actual entrepreneurs with normal everyday businesses. That's one of the common myths. So people think growth hacking is exclusive to startup companies or tech companies or big companies or companies with resources. All that is not true. It's actually applicable to everybody. And that's why I was sharing some of the very traditional, simple examples in which we've done this, so people can see these examples and get inspired. What I do recommend, though, is when you watch them, don't watch it literally, meaning you've got, again, Mr. Ice, you're like, I don't have an ice business, or I don't have a burger business, or I don't have a fintech business. But what you can do is you got to learn from those playbooks. That's the way to look at it. So you watch and see the techniques, take that playbook, and then you alter that and you start to experiment. And we talk about that in the challenge. So that's one thing. The other way is LinkedIn. So my inbox is really full right now. So if you reach out to me, it may take me some time to respond to you, but LinkedIn is a great place to connect directly. And then eventually my website, which is www.nadersabry.com.
I love it. I know our listeners are going to want that. So peeps, all of Nader's links are in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, click on those links, and open them up in a new browser, because we're not done yet. So I do get to ask you, at what point in life did you know you were special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur? Or should I ask you, how do you get it up and keep it up in business? You can answer either one of those.
Yeah, no, it was very early in life, which I'm lucky, because I knew I don't really accept status quo, and I didn't understand why. When I started to learn why that was, because I knew that there was a better world out there. And as an entrepreneur, I can make those kinds of changes by poking away at the world and making changes that would impact people's lives. And you can obviously make a lot of money doing that. That's when I really understood it. And so there's a common question sometimes people would ask this long time ago. They're like, what's the difference between an entrepreneur, a businessman, and a trader? And I tell them, there are distinctly three different things. Traders are leeches. That's just how they work. Businessmen who run businesses are there to create and add value. Entrepreneurs are there to change the world. That's the difference between the three types of people. So if you're an entrepreneur who's just adding value to your businessman, or if you're, leeching, that's of course a business model that's very exclusive, certain transactional, as you called it. You'd be in that category. But if you're out there to really change the world, entrepreneurship is the way to do it. And entrepreneurs are changing the world. They've been doing it obviously for quite some time. But in very, very recent times, with the different kinds of problems we're facing globally right now, the leaders behind the major changes are not government and universities. They're everyday entrepreneurs who are finding solutions to things that government and universities can't find.
I love it.
Yeah.
You have been absolutely awesome. Any last pillow talk for our peeps?
I'm all good. Keep experimenting. But experiment when you get out of bed. That's you got to be really awake and aware. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Peeps,
awesome.
Thank you, Nader, for your time. I appreciate it, and I know how valuable it is.
Thank you.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec, your mistress in business. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends. You know how we love having three in the bed. So we also love helping you get it up and keep it up in your business. Thank you for listening to the Little Blue Pill for Business podcast with your mistress in business, Michelle Nedelec. Why are you still here? Go to littlebluepillforbusiness.com and get your goodies. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to share it with somebody else that you know would enjoy getting it up in business. After you subscribe to the podcast, of course, so you won't miss any future episodes. Now, check the notes for links. Oh, and only tell your wife if she's into this, entrepreneurship. And I'll see you both on the other side.
As I can grant that one today, never let the